Welcome to the Westford Select Board meeting, and we're going to begin as we do with the Pledge of Allegiance, and tonight I'd like it to be led by John.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Tonight we're going to start open forum with a happy announcement. We're very fortunate in Westford to have excellent people on staff all over the place, and tonight we are going to thank and recognize Gail Johnson, who is our public health nurse. Gail, on behalf of the Massachusetts Association for Public Health Nurses, she has been announced the Presidential Award. She's been awarded the Presidential Award from that organization. This award is presented to an individual who has made outstanding contributions to the organization, as well as demonstrating an overall commitment to public health nursing. The award letter follows. Gail clearly demonstrates the meaning behind this award as she strives to provide Westford residents with various public health nursing functions that our residents need and deserve. She's a public health leader who not only benefits the Massachusetts Association of Public Health Nurses, but advocates and mentors public health nurses across the Commonwealth and educates all on the important role that public health nurses provide to their communities. She writes, "We are proud to have Gail receive this award as it outlines the tremendous service she provides on a daily basis." I've had the pleasure to work with Gail on a few things in her day job as the Westford public health nurse. She's also an instructor at Middlesex Community College, and so she's spreading her knowledge to future generations of public health professionals as well. So we're very happy to recognize Gail tonight. And if you don't know Gail, I don't know if we're going to be able to get this picture up on the camera, but you can find her picture in the materials if you're looking there. We're all very, very proud of Gail. So in absentia, let's give her a nice round of applause. We are doubly blessed. Next time, we're actually going to be recognizing Sue Hanley for being the Commonwealth Heroine of 2021 by the Massachusetts Commission on the Status of Women. We'll do that next time at our next meeting. I just had one other thing I wanted to mention before I ask the board if they have other open forum items. Just that I was at the farmers market today, and it was full and healthy and lots of people out, lots of little kids out. So it's just such a joy to have that going on in the community, and we're grateful to our partners at Road and Bush for continuing to make that such a success. Any other board comments for tonight?
I don't have anything for that.
Okay. We have a large number of public hearing items tonight, so you may see us bouncing around in our agenda a little bit because we need to make sure we wait at least till the stated time to start any of them. So I just mentioned that up front. We're going to start off with the consent agenda tonight. And so what I'll do is I'll read through these by section, and then I'll entertain a motion from one of my colleagues for approval or any questions that you might have. So first up, we have Town Common request. It's an event for the Cub Scout Pack 100 gathering. In the packet, you can see the applicant, and the date is on Saturday, August 28th from 11:30 to 2:30. There's also an event playing of taps to remember and honor the New England residents who lost their lives on September 11th. The applicant there is John Pyra. The date is Saturday, September 11th. That's going to be between 8 and 10:30 a.m. And the last event in this category is the Candlelight Remembrance in honor of the 20th anniversary of 9/11. That's applied for by the Westford Historical Society and Westford Remembers. That's also on Saturday, September 11th, and the time for that will be between 6 and 9. Is there any questions? Yes, Nita.
I have a question about the town's service for September 11th and whether or not that was going to conflict at all with this 8 to 10:30 a.m. time slot. I forgot to.
You know, it usually starts right around 10,
Okay.
right 9:55. So that's typical that these have overlapped a little bit.
Okay.
Okay. If there are no other questions, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? And we don't have to do a roll call vote right here. We can just do by raise of hands. Okay. If there are no other questions, I'll entertain a motion. So moved. All in favor? And we don't have to do a roll call vote right here. We can just do our by raise of hands. All in favor? Jody, that's right, right?
I'm sorry.
We don't have to do a roll call vote because we're not virtual. We can
That's
just-
correct.
We can
And
just call.
and also, you usually say subject to public safety.
Yes, subject to public
Which is what I was
safety approval.
thinking, so sorry.
Okay, no problem at all. So all in favor? Excellent. The next grouping is license requests. First is a celebration of life. Applicant is Margaret Halverson. Location is 114 Dunstable Road. That's also on September 11th, 2021. And that's between 12 PM and 8 PM. Any questions for that? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Okay. Next up, street closures. First is Old Town Acres Annual Block Party. Applicant is Kristen Frank. Location is 12 Dana Drive to 18 Dana Drive, and that is on Saturday, September 18th, 2021, with a rain date of Sunday, September 19th, and the time is between 3 and 7. We also have a neighborhood block party. Applicants Christy Vassi and Andrea McKinley. Location is 1 Lillian Road to 15 Lillian Road. And the date is Saturday, October 2nd, 2021, and the time is between 2 and 6 PM. Any questions about that?
No.
Okay. Why don't I proceed and we can do the motion at the end? We have a general license request for Witches Woods. The applicant is Doug Duchesne on behalf of Neshoba Valley Ski Area. That's at the Neshoba Valley Ski Area, 79 Powers Road. And that is a series of dates, October 1st through 2nd, 7th through 9th, 14th through 16th, 21st through 22nd, and 28th through 30th, between 5 p.m. and 12 a.m. We also have a public entertainment on Sunday license request for Witches Woods, and that is, again, requested by Doug Duchesne on behalf of the Neshoba Valley Ski Area, same location. And the dates there, October 3rd, 10th, 17th, 24th, and 31st, between 5 p.m. and 12 a.m. And we have also several banner requests. First is for special town meeting. Lynn Cohen on behalf of the League of Women Voters. That's going to be at First Parish Church on Monday, October 11th through Thursday, October 21st. Also have a banner request for the town election. And the applicant there is Lynn Cohen on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Westford again. And it's First Parish again. And the dates are Tuesday, April 26th, 2022 to Friday, May 6th, 2022. Any questions for any of those?
No.
Yep, John?
No question.
No questions? Anita?
I have a question, or maybe it's just going to be how we state the motion, but I remember last year Witches Woods had to be really careful with all the COVID restrictions and stuff, so I feel like if we're going to, assuming we're pushing this forward and approving it, that would be, subject to public safety as well as Board of Health, any sort of additional COVID regulations if by the fall time anything else is raised.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Do you remember, Jody or Eric, what the process was last year? Because Anita's exactly right. There was a several-step process here.
I think last year the Board of Health did give us a lot of suggestions or recommendations, but I don't know that they did that this year, but I think your motion would be completely appropriate.
Yeah, and I think Doug Duchesne recognized that in his memo. I think he mentioned he'd work with Public Safety and Board of Health. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, well, with that in mind, why don't we do those separately, because, as you point out, we're going to have a slightly different motion. So why don't we do the street closures, so item 3, and then item 6 first, if I could have a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor? And that's also subject to public safety. And then this next group will be subject to public safety and a review with the Westford Board of Health. And that's item 4 and item 5, both the requests for Witches Woods. If I could have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Great. Our 740 item, we have a request for a change of directors. On Mass General Law 138, all alcohol club license for Stony Brook Fish and Game. And that is, there's a whole host of folks here on this application. Brian McGinty, David Francio, Dan Finnegan, Joseph Spadano, Pat McQuinn, Robert Fitton, Leonard Leo are the proposed managers. I guess first, if there are any questions. Patty, is everything in order for this?
It is, and for you who might be new and we're doing this in person. The change of directors is every year or two, the clubs change their directors, their officers of their club. They have to change it with the corporate division. So they also need to change their liquor license because these folks are also in charge of that license. So this is basically a paperwork thing, but they're, checked out and everything was fine. So that's what that's all about.
Okay.
Great. Any other questions? Okay. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. And we may be up against the situation I was talking about. Our next item is a public hearing, which is not scheduled for 4 more minutes. So we will now jump ahead briefly to old new business and spend a few minutes there, the 8 o'clock item. We have a number of requests to approve, and let's see. We're lucky to have our treasurer here to help us understand what these are. Yeah, if you could. That'd be great. If you could come forward to the mic, that'd be great.
So we are just doing a little bit of borrowing. We are asking to issue 20-year bonds for Prospect Hill Water Tank. The total amount of the bond is going to end up at $2,279,200. We received premiums that reduced the bond size. And the Abbott School roof, which is going to be bonded at $1,245,800. We also have bond anticipation notes for Kersey Circle, and in the amount of $1,194,200, and then the school building access controls project at $567,400. The winning bidder for the bonds was Oppenheimer and Company at, it was Roosevelt and Cross at what they call a true interest cost of 1.648. And that takes into consideration a $316,000 premium that we received from them. And the short-term bonds were Oppenheimer with a net interest cost of 0.3593. So the rates were wonderful, and it's a good time to be borrowing money. Yeah, so any questions?
That's great. Thank you for that summary. Any questions from the board about
I have none.
any of those? You, I think you already preempted my question by saying this was a very good, a good rate and a good time to be borrowing.
Yeah.
Did you have a number of competitive bids?
We had 5 bids, for the bonds. I think we had 4 bids for the notes, for the short term. Yeah.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, and we maintained our AAA rating recently, so that was good. And there is a motion on the top of, there's like a little letter that summarizes all this. And there's motion language there that you can use so that you don't have to read the entire 3-page vote that's in the bond council's paperwork.
Is this the?
I have it if you don't. That's the actual vote, but there's a
I don't see that I have that.
It was at the top, I remember, yeah.
Okay. Fantastic.
I have to read 3 pages of legal jargon.
As always, Christine is making it very easy for us.
I move to approve the vote prepared by bond council, which is in the select board's packet and available online in connection with the town's bond issue dated August 25th, 2021, and note issue dated September 14th, 2021.
Second.
Great. Any further discussion? All in favor? Great.
All right, great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
So just make sure you sign all those pages for me, and I'll grab them tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Nobody can leave their chair until we
Have a good night.
So we sign those. And just a real short one is up next, which is probably obvious to folks out there, but our Board of Health unanimously voted to mandate to require masks to be worn by both vaccinated and unvaccinated people attending public meetings out of an abundance of caution. So we appreciate their work. And many of us would probably be in masks anyway, but that's part of why you see us here. And if you can't see our audience, everyone here is in compliance tonight. Thank you very much for being part of our move to be as safe as we can. Okay. We are now back to our item 6, the 745 public hearing. This is a request for an alteration of licensed premises on the Mass General Law 138, number 12, all alcohol restaurant license at Fucci Restaurant LLC, doing business as Fuji Asian Cuisine, 355 Littleton Road, with Mai Chen Lin, proposed manager. And same question for you, Patty. Is everything in order for this?
Do we have to move to
Yeah,
open
to open
the?
the
Oh, I'm
public
sorry.
hearing.
Should we go ahead and move to open the public hearing?
I make a motion to open public hearing.
A second.
All in favor? Thank you very much for that. Patty, any, it's all
I
in
can
order
say
with this
something, but I
request?
think the lady from Fuji is also here. But before, I can briefly tell you that you approved this at an earlier meeting, but when it went to the Alcoholic Beverage Control Commission, they said that the premises was a little different than the transfer from the old establishment to the new. So they had us do this again to approve that. So that's what we're doing. But I think this is Mai Sheng Ling, Lin, I'm sorry. Andy handled most of this, so I'm kind of winging it here, although we discussed it. And I don't know if she has more to say or not, but she's all set as far as her paperwork goes.
Great, welcome. We're happy to have you here tonight.
Hi, yes, thank you.
Great, so we're excited that you're operating with us here in Westford, and is there anything you'd like to share with the board?
No, it's just, interior renovation. They requested me to have this board meeting again to go through the documentation, but everything is all set.
Okay, well, that's great to hear.
Yeah, thank you.
Any questions from the board?
Nope.
Okay, well, great, thank you for being here and being part of our community. We really appreciate it. And I will entertain a motion to
Motion to approve.
approve.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for being here tonight.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor? Now we get to do it again.
In 3 minutes.
Oh, we got a couple minutes? Okay. We will once again jump to our old new business, item 3. This might be for you, Eric, is that right? Update on availability for hybrid public meeting options?
No, go ahead.
So, as you'll see tonight, we're doing the hybrid meetings here. We're actually, this is our first kind of test. We did another one this morning, actually, for Capital Planning Committee. It worked well, but this is the first time we've had people at home. There's currently 11 attendees on the meeting right now. So we are actually hoping to get this set up, similar setup for the school committee down at the Millennium Building the next week. And we have upgraded equipment coming hopefully the end of this week, which will allow for better audio and video for people at home to view everybody here speaking. So it's, I think we're going to be pretty close to a good setup.
Anita?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you. I know this is something that a lot of committees are really interested in having more, knowing more about, and the public as well. So thank you for all of your time and effort and troubleshooting of trying to make this happen. So this is great. Thank you.
I couldn't have done it without Mike Wells.
Thanks, Mike Wells.
Yeah, very much appreciated, and I hope we can get the word out. I know we will through. But I know people really appreciated being able to log in from home during the earlier phases of COVID, so we welcome that. Okay, we are almost at 7:50.
Can we do minutes?
Actually, here's one we can do quick. So the Town and School Safety Task Force would like to appoint School Superintendent Chris Chu to be part of this Town and School Safety Task Force as a full member for a term expiring June 30th. Scott Hazelton and I are making that request. Obviously, the new superintendent has a full plate, lots of things to come on board with at a challenging time, but we really want him to be part of this effort as we complete some parts and move on to other parts of making sure that our town and community are as safe and well as we know how to make them. So I will entertain a motion to appoint Chris Chu.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Great, thank you so much. And, all right, we'll come back to number 4 a little bit later. Now we're at 7:50. And I'll entertain a request or a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? This 750 item is a petition for joint or identical pole locations. It's a request from Massachusetts Electric Company doing business as National Grid. And we often have someone to help us understand this proposal, and there's a lot of information about this in the packet as well. Do we have anyone here tonight for this?
Is there?
They're online, they're on the screen.
There we are. Looks like David's getting all set up there, but Dave, when you're ready, maybe you can just give the public a quick explanation of what it is that we're asking for tonight.
Hey, trying to do this. I'm gonna have to walk away. I've got two computers going. What we have on Forge Village Road is a project that's going on to place new conductor along the road. And what we'd like to do is support that with a new stub pole as shown in the diagram. There you go. Thank you for pulling that up. I can see that. On Forge Village Road at approximately number 17, Forge Village. Right now there is guy wire where we're proposing that pole 20-84 and it goes into a tree. The wire that goes down Forge Village Road is on cross arms. It's what we call arm construction. And we're going to be putting in some new spacer cable that is better for, it allows for less outages, we'll say, because when the branches will fall on that, it will cause, it's controlled, it's made so that it doesn't stay and cause face-to-face contact and outages. So it's to benefit the town and for reliability. And what we'd like to do at that particular point is take the guy wire out of the tree that's there, right near where we're proposing pole 20-84, and place the new pole there and support the line across the street. We're going to be doing construction very soon to bring in that new cable, as I said. Going to try to get some volume going. I'm not sure if it's working. Go ahead.
Great. We can hear that okay, David, and I'll ask my fellow members here if they have any questions.
Okay.
Any
You say
questions?
that you're supporting that across the street? Did you say you were supporting that across the street?
Yeah, you can see there's 4 poles there.
Yep.
The black dots.
Right?
Our conductor is there right now, and it goes around that corner. And when we take turns with wire on poles, it pulls it one way or the other. And what we have to do is support it by pulling it the other direction. That's what that new pole is going to be. Right now, we're supporting it with a tree that's on that side of the road.
So what's the height of that cable?
The height,
Over the street?
probably about 25, 30 feet.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, just as you can see, there's another pole right there, pole 19-84, that's in place. It does the same exact thing.
Anita?
You know, I don't know if I'm mixing up my public hearings, but I remember that there was an email from Steve Cronin. Oh, yes, it is for this one, the poll petition, where there were some double polls or something that I just wanted to kind of recognize. Was there any concern there? Did we need to review this list with National Grid at all? There's several double polls in town that have yet to be addressed. It's on page 11 of the poll petition meeting packet, 11 and 12.
Yep. Jody?
So, yes, we try to work with National Grid and Verizon on removing the double poles. In a lot of the cases, they're left there waiting for Verizon to get the lines off, but I don't know, David, did Steve share with you the list of double poles?
No, I didn't. 99% of the poles are owned by National Grid and Verizon, 50%. And they remove all the poles now. We don't. So, and then there's obviously the other utilities that are on those poles that need to move when we change poles out, put new ones in. So, we do have a company representative that could talk to you about that, that speaks on that for the company and works with all the town councils. There is one for Westford. I don't know who that happens to be, but I could find out tomorrow and have that person contact you about any questions you have, not just double poles, anything else too.
I think that would be very helpful if you don't mind forwarding that to me, and I can check the status of these polls, and if there's a national grid issue, I'll let you know.
As I said, they'll work with you, but I think they're going to give you a very similar answer as I do, is that you really need to get in contact with Verizon as far as like, if, removing them when everybody's transferred. Usually the procedure is to take the pole away once you've made your change. It's just they may not be getting to them in an appropriate amount of time. Or maybe they are, I don't know, I can't make a judgment on that, I don't have data in front of me, so.
Okay, thanks, Jody. We'll appreciate you following up on that.
Yep.
I know that it's routine for us to check in with the abutters to see if there's any issues or questions. So, Dave, did you run into any questions or concerns with any abutters related to this project?
No one has called to question it. So there's no one outstanding that has any questions from us, so.
Okay. Any other questions from the board?
None.
If not, we'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the request.
Second?
All in favor? Okay, on to our 7:55, also with David.
Motion to close the
Oh, I'm
public
sorry.
hearing.
Thank you, I'm glad you guys are here doing this. So motion,
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
okay, all in favor? And now right back.
Motion to open the public hearing for a petition for electrical conduit location.
All in favor?
Okay.
Okay, now we're in the 7:55, item number 8 on the agenda, public hearing, also with Dave Bosher of National Grid, but for a slightly different purpose. Dave, maybe if we, Eric, if you can pull up the,
Where'd you go?
did we lose? There he is. If we pull up the,
My fault, I thought we were done with them.
no problem. If you want to pull up the materials relative to that, and Dave, if you can go ahead and just describe what this part of the project is.
Yeah, on this road, Robbins, I believe it's called Robbins, it's done. Yeah, there we go. I was out there, look at this, we have a switchgear down at the bottom, it's like a rectangle there, yeah. That exists and it goes over, what we have existing, crossing the road and into the private property of number 1, is 2 feeds that go to transformers for the building. It's a commercial building with a lot of usage, and they're adding road to it. They want they need another transformer location. We happen to have an open spot there on that switchgear that's there, that rectangle, and we'd like to bring over one more live line over there to a transformer on the property. And what would need is 75 feet, two conduits that are 4 inches in diameter, and they're concrete encased. And if the town sees fit, it would enable us to go forward for that customer and bring them more electricity.
It's great. We certainly want to support our commercial neighbors. What's the, Jody, do you know offhand who's in that building?
No.
I don't know either. I should have checked. Any questions from the board about this?
No.
Okay, and from the public? Okay. If so, I will entertain a motion for this one as well.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor? Now we have to, now that you've coached me, we have to leave the
I
public
make a
hearing.
motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay, we are now back in some of the items with old new business. Let's see, we still have number 4. This is the notification from the Westford Water Department on a per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, PFAS, sample results for the Forge Village and Nutting Road water treatment plants. And I saw Steve a second ago. There you are. So we're welcoming Steve Cronin, the Director of Public Works, and Mark Warren, the Acting Water Superintendent. Welcome to you both.
Good evening.
Yeah, if you can fill us in with what you've learned.
Yep, absolutely. So tonight we just wanted to provide the board with some information regarding PFAS sample results that we had at the Forge Village and Nutting Road water treatment plants, as well as our drinking water sources. So PFAS stands for per and polyfluoral substances. It's been in the news quite a bit lately. It's a newly regulated contaminant here in Massachusetts. There are 4,700 chemicals in the PFAS family. And they have two things in common. They're basically man-made, and they contain linked chains of carbon and fluorine.
Steve, I'm sorry, but I'm just going to ask you to pause for 1 second.
Sure.
Do we have any disposable masks that we could offer up guests? Our health department voted recently that we're going to be masked up in all the public meetings. So,
Do you have masks?
no? Okay.
Yeah.
You still have to wear a mask.
Do we have any?
Do we have any other disposable ones?
Yeah, he'll go get one. We don't have, yeah, he'll get one from the office.
Okay. So Eric's going to go get you, thank you for being here. We're very glad you're here. Eric is going to go get some masks. If you wouldn't mind just waiting just outside the door.
Yeah, sorry about
He'll
that.
hand you some, and, yeah, this is a change. This was a vote that our Board of Health took, which we obviously support. All being careful about COVID. Okay, so why don't we resume? Thanks, Steve. Sorry to interrupt you.
Steve, would you like me to take it over from here?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Mark.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. My name is Mark Warren, interim water superintendent. And as Steve mentioned, PFAS, they refer to per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. They are, in fact, an emerging contaminant, and they do refer to anywhere from, what I think you said, 4,700 to even up to 7,000 compounds, depending on who you speak to. And they do have a lot of unique properties. They're very useful in water-resistant and stain-resistant products. They're very useful in fighting petroleum fires. Unfortunately, they have some characteristics that are harmful. For example, they don't tend to break down in the environment. They stick around for a long time. They're very mobile in groundwater, and they're suspected of having some negative health effects. PFAS are found in many consumer products, carpeting, clothing, fabrics, food packaging, cookware, polishes, paints, cleaning products, personal care products, cosmetics, even some tooth floss. And recently they've been detected in aerial mosquito treatments, like products like Anvil. So they're actually very common. They're ubiquitous in the environment. So to address this, back in October of the DEP promulgated some new PFAS regulations. And in that, they created a new PFAS standard, or a maximum contaminant level, or MCL, of 20 parts per trillion. They also required water suppliers like Westford to conduct periodic sampling. Right now, the EPA does not have a standard. They're still using their old PFAS guideline of 70 parts per trillion. So Massachusetts is significantly lower than that. We originally started sampling for PFAS back in 2014 and 2015 as part of a federal unregulated contaminant study. During that study, we collected finished water samples from both our Forge and our Nutting plants on a quarterly basis. The first 3 rounds, we had non-detected results, and the final round, we had trace concentrations of PFAS, trace meaning less than 10 parts per trillion. Now, this study was useful in us sort of getting a feeling of what we should expect in Westford. Back then, it was not as good. I mean, there's much more improved today. Labs can see down to much lower levels with much greater accuracy. So that study was somewhat limited. In last year, August and October of 2020, we participated in a DEP study, a voluntary study, where they provided funding for 2 sampling rounds. And we did the same thing. We collected finished water samples from both of our plants and ran them for PFAS. And actually, Eric, if you could pull up the table in the memo that I provided the select board. If not, I can just provide the numbers real quick. I'll provide the numbers. During that study, there it is, okay. So, the forage plant, we found an average of about 12 parts per trillion, and for nutting, about 14 parts per trillion. Since then, we started doing our required compliance starting in April of this year, and at this point, we've conducted 4 sampling rounds. In July, we had a sampling result of 20.6 at our forage water treatment plant. 20.6 exceeds the MCL of 20 parts per trillion. So we immediately did a few things. We contacted the DEP, requested their guidance. We notified the Board of Water Commissioners, and we provided this memo to the Select Board, including this information. Last week, we did meet with the DEP. They gave us some guidance. We discussed our plans. One of the things that they strongly encouraged us to do is to do some sort of public education campaign for this. It's going to basically include mailers to all of our customers that show these results and discuss the possible effects of PFAS and basically explain what PFAS are. In addition to that, I will update our website and probably issue an RSS feed notification to people who subscribe to that in town. Something to keep in mind, even though we did have that exceedance of 20.6, the Westford Water Department is in compliance with the Massachusetts PFAS regulations. Compliance is based on quarterly average, and as you can see in our first quarter, Q2, our average was 15.2 for forage and 16 for nutting. Our average for the third quarter has not been calculated yet, but we are still in compliance. Our water does in fact meet both state standards and federal guidelines. So, even before we received these July results, we decided to be proactive and sample all of our source wells. So we have 9 groundwater source wells in town, and we collected a sample from each one. And we've recently gotten those results back. For 8 of those wells, the PFAS concentrations were between roughly 3 and 18, so less than the MCL. For one well, it's called our Country Road 2 well, we had an exceedance. We had a high concentration of PFAS, roughly 58, 59 parts per trillion, which we were a little surprised at. Let's see here. Bear with me for 1 second, please. All right, so even before we received the source results and the July results, we had decided that we needed to, be proactive, and we contracted with an engineering firm to develop a contingency plan in the event something like this happened. And some of the things we discussed are different engineering alternatives, different options we could do to mitigate any sort of exceedances, basically plans for the future. So, let's see here.
So just I'll take over for here, Mark. So just to summarize for Mark, we did meet with the DEP. As Mark said, we are currently in compliance with all federal and state regulations. Their recommendations to us were to provide the public with some public education, which we plan to do. So we'll get those mailers out as soon as possible and get the information up on the town website. In the meantime, we do have our source sample results, so we'll be continuing to monitor those and looking for potential sources. But at this point in time, as Mark said, we are in compliance, and we just wanted to update the board on what the results were.
Actually, one more thing, Steve. We just, out of an abundance of caution, we did take the Country Road well offline, so it's not in service at this point.
Okay, good. So we thank you for explaining this to us. And I guess the public can take away that we're watching this carefully, and the outlier well is out of service, and we're continuing to work on this. We'll get more public education out there. Any questions or follow-ups from the board?
Steve, are there any ways to treat this? Is there any technology that could treat this water?
Yep, there are some approved treatment technologies out there, including, granulated activated carbon and resin filtration. I think that's, we're a little premature in investigating those. I don't think there's any immediate cause for, treatment at this point. We're going to continue to evaluate the results. But there are technologies available to treat this if it did get to a point where we needed to do that.
All right, thank you.
Anita?
I have two questions. Thank you, Mark and Steve, for explaining everything. I have like zero background in PFAS, so this was a really great overview. I have two questions. One is if you could elaborate a little bit more on the public education piece, and is it around behavior to help minimize PFAS into the water, or is it just what it is?
Sure. So public education basically breaks it out into two groups. You have, groups that are vulnerable and groups that are not, essentially. Those groups that are vulnerable, people that are immunocompromised and children and mothers and things. So all the public education does is just provide them with results and gives them some guidance on what to do. This chemical has to be consumed over a long period of time to have an impact on people that don't have underlying health conditions. So it's really more just to let them know that it's there. But there really doesn't, there really is no need to change current habits.
Okay, thank you. And my second question was, you had mentioned you took offline the Country Road well, so what's servicing water for that area?
So the Country Road well is a combination of the wells that feed the Forge Village treatment plant. So by taking that offline, it doesn't necessarily impact any individual customers. It reduces our overall capacity slightly, but based on current demand and the other sources we have, it's not having an overall impact on our system.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Any other questions? All set? Well, great. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate the update, and we'll be keeping our eyes open for the public education mailer.
Thank you. Okay.
Thanks. We will now move on to item 6 under old new business is a request from the Affordable Housing Trust to reappoint the following personnel as full members for 2-year terms expiring June 30th, 2023. That includes Joan Croteau, Maureen George, J. Scott Hazelton, Karen Hudson, Drew Vernalia, and Alden Wood. Any questions from the board about those appointments?
No.
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor? Excellent. And item 7 is a request to appoint the election officers for terms to expire on July 31st, 2022. Maybe, Eric, if you could just pull up that list of election officers just so we can take a look on it.
Sure.
This is in the packet online for anyone who wants to take a look at this later. Thanks for doing that. Any questions from anyone on the board or the public about people on this list?
Nope.
Excellent. We appreciate their service, and I think I need a motion to appoint.
I make a motion to appoint the election officers as listed.
Second. Sorry.
All in favor? Okay, thank you very much. Next item up is our 8:15. We have 1 minute left. Before we can go to that, let me,
Tom?
yes.
Mr. Chair, did we cover the update on Board of Health mandate?
We did.
Okay.
We did
I must have
earlier.
missed that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And let's see if there's anything else that's real quick. We just have another minute. Why don't we go ahead and ask our attorney, our counsel, Jeff, do you want to come up here and join me up here? Sure. And we'll be all set for what comes next. I now see 8:15.
His way around.
Sure. While Jeff's coming up here, our next item for 8:15 is a public hearing, which we will go into session on. Just, well, maybe I'll do that first. Kind of a motion to move into the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, we are now in public hearing. This is a potential nuisance dangerous dog hearing. These are hearings that we review and deliberate and make decisions on maybe 3 or 4 times a year. And the way that we usually open, and we will tonight as well, is we ask our council just to give a kind of an overview of what is the statute that this is governed under, and then sort of what's the procedure tonight, because there's a little bit more formality to this kind of hearing than we often have. So, Jeff, if you could just help kind of orient people what it is, what the process is, and what the decisions available the select board has tonight.
I'd be happy to, Mr. Chairman, the members of the select board. My name is Jeff Blake. I'm with KP Law, Town Council. Under Chapter 140, Section 157, the local Board of Selectmen is the hearing authority, and you have the authority to hear all complaints for dogs. I am going to read from that statute just to give us a broad overview of what's going on. 157, Section 157 says that any person may file a complaint in writing to the hearing authority, the Board of Selectmen, that a dog owned or kept in the town is a nuisance dog or a dangerous dog, provided, however, that no dog shall be deemed dangerous solely based upon growling or barking, or solely or growling and barking, based on the breed of the dog, or if the dog was reacting to another person or to another animal or to a person, and the dog's reaction was not grossly disproportionate. So you are here today to make a determination, because we got a complaint that there was a dangerous dog and that there was a bite on another dog, and in the process of one dog owner trying to extricate the other dog, there may have been another bite from the aggressor dog. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to read to you the definition. So here it said, you can file a complaint and the Board of Selectmen can make a determination as to whether or not the dog is a dangerous dog or a nuisance dog. And a dangerous dog is, pursuant to the statute, a dog that either, without justification, attacks a person or a domestic animal causing physical injury or death, behaves in a manner that a reasonable person would believe poses an unjustified imminent threat of physical harm or death to a person or to a domestic or owned animal. That's dangerous dog. I have this, so once you hear evidence, and you will hear evidence, I'm happy to reread that for you guys. The definition of a nuisance dog. Under the statute, a dog that, by excessive barking or other disturbance, is a source of annoyance to a sick person residing in the vicinity, or by excessive barking causing damage or other interference, a reasonable person would find such behavior disruptive to one's quiet and peaceful enjoyment, or has threatened or attacked livestock, a domestic animal, or a person, but such threat or attack was not a grossly disproportionate reaction under all the circumstances. So if you make these findings, and you're going to be asked to make a finding as to whether it's a dangerous dog, a nuisance dog, or if you make that finding, you will then be able to, bear with me a second. If you, the hearing authority, deem a dog a nuisance dog, the hearing authority may further order that the owner or the keeper of the dog take remedial action to ameliorate the cause of the nuisance behavior. That gives you the ability to make an order that you can craft to try to alleviate what we consider to be the nuisance. Secondly, if it's considered a dangerous dog, you're a little bit more constrained. A nuisance dog, as I just said, there's a lot of creativity they can do. If it's a dangerous dog, if the hearing authority deems a dog a dangerous dog, the hearing authority shall order one or more of the following. And I'm going to just briefly go down through because it's quite a few pages, but you can be restrained. You can have that it be confined to the premises, that it be removed, and that when removed from the when removed from the premises, the owner or the or the premises of the person keeping the dog shall be securely and humanely muzzled and restrained. You could require some proof of insurance. There is a few caveats there, and if we decide later on if you want to discuss that further, we certainly can. You can require that some type of identification be marked on the dog, for example, a tattoo, in case we're having issues trying to identify. We've had situations where we've had 2 or 3 dogs of the same breed that are causing problems. You could, unless the owner provides an opinion from a veterinarian, you could have the dog altered. And ultimately, or finally, you could have the dog humanely euthanized. The statute it constrains you. You can do 1 or more of them, but it does not allow you to deviate outside there. So with that, that's kind of where we sit. A dangerous dog hearing under the statute is going to be typically the way these are run is we have the complainant give their complaint. Then it's certainly up to you, but the way most of these run that I've done, the complainant will give up. Oftentimes the dog owner will get up next, and then I think the animal control officer or the police officers that were involved in it will get up and give their rendition of what they saw, to the extent that they did. They did an investigation, certainly. And then ultimately, most of my boards will ask the animal control officer for their opinion as to what should happen. Once all the evidence has been provided, you will close the public portion of it, the testimony portion of it, and you'll deliberate. I have with me all these the statutory references. I'm happy to reread the definitions over and over again, because well, seriously, I know that when you're trying to deliberate, you're going, well, wait a minute, dangerous dog, nuisance dog, what's... So happy to read those over and over for you.
That's great. Any questions about procedure before we go through the order of events as described? You good? Okay. Good. So we're going to follow the order of procedure that was just outlined here by our counsel. So first would be the complainant. If you'd like to approach the microphone.
They need to be sworn in, do they not?
They'll need to be sworn in. Yep, this is a very official hearing, so we're going to ask you to be sworn in by...
Okay, I just have a question. I'm the wife of the owner of the dog as well, so can I sit there as well?
Sure. Yeah, you're welcome to join.
Mr. Chair, I would suggest that you say that anybody that is going to testify here tonight, please stand up, raise your right hand, and we will administer the oath to them.
Okay, does that make sense? We're just going to swear everyone in at once. So if you're planning to or think you might testify, please go ahead and stand and join for this piece. If you think you might, there's no problem. You may not choose to. Okay, please proceed, counsel.
All right. Everybody who's going to testify here today, raise your right arm. Do you swear to tell the truth? Do you swear that the testimony you're going to give here tonight is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, before we go with that, I would like to do some minor housekeeping. You have in front of you a packet of information, and I would like to just have that, entered into the record. I'm going to very quickly, I'm not going to read any of it, but I'm going to very quickly identify the documents so that everybody will know what is in the record.
Thank you.
The first document that I have is the complaint from a Mr. John Fitch. The second document that I have is a certified letter to the dog owner, Melissa Pura. The next is a notice of a hearing that I believe was posted on the town's website and throughout town. Is that correct, on the bulletin boards?
We distribute it to abutters of the neighborhood.
Okay.
And send it directly to the dog owner as well.
Okay. Then we have a police report, incident number 21-2237-OF, call 21-17404. The next one is an animal control incident report. and that is dated 7/18. 7/18, and it is in regard to a dog-to-dog bite. There is a license for the dog, the complained of dog, which is a boxer mix, and there are a variety of emails that were sent to the town from the complainant, and I'd like to make that all part of the record.
Yeah, and I think there were a couple of other emails sent in. I don't know if that's included in your record of other people in the community who chose to respond.
I did not see that. So any other emails that were sent in by members of the community will also be in your record.
Thank you very much. Okay. I think we're at the part now where we get to hear from you.
I'm sorry, I'm a little hard of hearing, and cloth masks muffle the sibilances so much, I have trouble understanding through them. I could not understand the last few words you said.
Okay, apologies. We now welcome you to present your information to this group.
Pardon me?
We now welcome you to present.
Okay, thank you.
1 second. Would I be able to give anything that I wanted to share with you, or is it just him who?
You're both very welcome to share, and I'll leave it up to you whether you'd like.
She's the dog owner, I believe.
Yes, both of us are husband and wife.
She's the
Oh,
owner
I'm
of
sorry.
the...
You're the owner of the dog that got bit?
The dog that was bit.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
I couldn't find anything clarifying how this hearing is held. The statute is not very clear, it just says a hearing. So I wonder if this is sort of like an adversary proceeding. Am I and the owner of the other dog allowed to act as advocates? Do we get to speak? Because just reading the statute would suggest you can hold a hearing, just ask questions, not let the people say anything that you'd rather not have in the record. So how is this hearing conducted?
Our practice has been to let both the complainant and then also the other party speak. So you're free to present what happened in your own words.
Okay, how long do I have?
It typically is a few minutes, but there's not a formal limit.
Okay, this I wish to start sort of includes episode including the II definition of dangerous dog of threatening and behaving recklessly and putting someone in threat. The original root cause of all of this is a hot tub that Pura installed on the deck behind her house. I quickly calculated in my head, I said, that sucker probably weighs over 3,000 pounds. I could see the deflection of the joists. I said, this is a real problem. I told the Pilgrim Association, I said, there's a serious problem. You got to get somebody out there right away Monday morning. Well, I see Monday morning, someone with a badge and a clipboard, I assume was your building inspector, shows up, disappears from view, goes back the other way, and I get a call, the owner is emptying the hot tub. And when I've seen it turned up, done a better estimate, now I'd say it contained 4,400 pounds of water resting on just 4 2x8 joists. It was extremely dangerous. Now, so that started, I think, the problem. Now, days later, my wife told me she was walking Coco and they passed by Miss Pruitt, who was drinking coffee and casually holding Hardy's leash, not very securely, at the end of the driveway where it met the street. And she told me that Miss Pruitt made clear by her conduct she was very angry. I conclude the building inspector did not give complete, accurate information to Mrs. Pruitt, or she would have been grateful and would have come over and thanked me. I hope maybe you can ask her and we can find out today what your building inspector told her that made her very angry with me instead of thanking me.
If we could stay closer to the events related to the bite, and that would be helpful to us, I think.
Well, I have to give some preface that her dog is just very dangerous and wants to kill any other dog it can. So I found after moving in, she always took great pains in walking her dog to avoid having it come near any other dogs. Before the hot tub, after we moved in, she would not use the driveway anymore and would cut through the woods to avoid encountering us. So when I was leaving once and she was returning, she immediately cut with her dog left through snow, over underbrush, terrible, to go through the woods. I was thinking, what did I say to offend her? But she fell flat on her face, tripped terribly, and I called out, I said, "Are you okay?" And she said she was okay. I realized later that she did this because her dog hates other dogs. And so then after the hot tub incident, her behavior changed. First, she parked herself at the end of the driveway, and part of my claim in advocacy in cases here, this was not so much an accident as intentional conduct on her part. She's guilty of what, okay, you don't want to go in order, the law calls wanton and reckless conduct. I don't know what satisfaction she got out of this, but she on purpose planted herself at the end of the driveway where my wife and our dog would be in danger and have to go close by her. The miracle is not that later our dog got attacked, but why our dog didn't die that day. But our dog is really afraid of big dogs, won't even look at them, minds his own business, looks down, and would just go by. So maybe that didn't trigger Hardy. Now then, sometime later, on July 17th, she and her son were outside their unit, and I walked out with Coco. Now, her dog attacked and covered the 50 feet between him and me in a matter of seconds, wicked fast. Now, her story changed in the telling. First, immediately after the attack, she said Hardy pulled the leash out of her hand. Then the police officer showed up, and his report says Purr stated that she was in the driveway with her son playing basketball, and Hardy was in the driveway with them on a leash, but that leash was not secured to anything. I think that's probably the most credible answer, that the officer is kind of intimidating, and she was still, didn't have her wits about her. Then she told the ACO, she stated, Hardy abruptly pulled away from her, taking the leash with him. I suspect the story she told the policeman is true, and she didn't even have it on the leash. She just parked the dog around them, which placed us in big danger when we came out. Now, we stepped out, and we only went a couple steps on our porch, and with seconds, I heard her scream, the most terrifying scream I've ever heard, worse than a movie, like utter panic and terror. I looked to the right and saw Hardy racing toward me. Now, Hardy, by the way, was completely silent throughout the attack, which I've done some research. This indicates the dog is fighting in earnest to kill, not a dominate type dogfight thing where they snarl and try and scare each other. I think she may have realized instantly the seriousness of the attack. And it wasn't clear as we were all on a line and Hardy was racing at me whether Hardy was planning to kill me or Coco. Now I saw him racing. I went down like this, wanted to pick up my dog, and didn't even get that far. I was in this position when Hardy hit me. I think it hit me on the elbow. Can't even remember all this, but they tell me I was knocked back. Officers in the AOC, they wanted to dismiss the injuries on my elbow as being from scraping the concrete. It makes no difference. The dog attacked me. If the dog knocked me over and I had my elbow on the sidewalk, that is an injury. By statute, the dog is defined as dangerous, and you are required, in my opinion, to find the dog dangerous. I do not agree with your assistant town manager that you have complete discretion whether or not to declare a dog dangerous or not.
Okay,
I think the law requires
John.
you to, given those facts.
So we'll make that determination.
Here's marks on me. I think that what the dog did is maybe it hit me with kind of open, at first it wanted to take me out so it could get the dog. First, maybe with its open jaws, it hit me on the elbow, and so it did something here. Or maybe it was more complicated, but in the heat of all this happening, I didn't realize even I'd been hurt till after it was all over, and my wife said, "You're bleeding," and these areas there were covered with blood. So he's knocked me down, and I didn't even see it, so like Coco disappeared. He grabbed Coco, just went to my right, and then I got up and saw he was over there, and I went over and focused on kicking the dog in the groin. Coco was screaming in pain and terror as this dog was biting him. I kicked the dog 4 times in the groin to no effect. I was aware of the taut leash, but my intention was entirely on the dog's midsection and focusing on kicking it. I didn't even see what was going on at the jaws in. But my wife had stepped out now and was watching, and she later told me what she saw was Ms. Pearl first pulled on the leash, to no effect. She picked up a stick and began hitting Hardy with it, no effect. When Hardy's head if it was pulled back, he just dragged Coco with it. So this wasn't accomplishing anything. Coco was trying to escape to my right. And I asked my wife about this critical point, like in dog pit fighting or something. She says Hardy was progressively biting and trying to work his way up from Coco's hindquarters to his throat. The last wounds the vet found was one on the sternum about here and one on the back of the neck. I wasn't looking at that, but Pearl would have seen. The next bite would have been fatal. So she gave up on pulling on the leash. My wife tells me that she picked up the hind legs and raised them very high, which if you look online, it's found that reportedly, you put all the weight of the dog on its front legs, it doesn't like it, and it will break off the attack. So it broke off the attack. And then I took Coco inside. I'm told I carried him. I don't even remember. I thought he walked in on his own. Neither Pura nor I tried to separate the dogs. The report, that's false. Neither of us had the nerve, I don't think she had it, to try and grab the dog by the collar around the neck or anywhere near the body that it would turn on us. So I took Coco in, came back out. Miss Pearl was hysterical because she couldn't find her son. She said he was scared and was hiding somewhere. Now, I went back in to see Coco had significant blood soaking his fur. The injuries aren't very apparent till after they shaved him at the animal emergency vet place in Cornerstone Shopping. So the AOC's thing saying, oh, there were 2 puncture wounds is wildly inaccurate about the severity of the injuries. Now, I couldn't read the whole long thing, but the last vet that's taking care of the dog.
Can I talk about it? I would like to say it now.
Okay, well, she was very offended at the AOC person's report that understated the severity of the injuries and took time at the end of the day to write a long description of how severe the injuries were to Coco.
Okay, I just want to say, this is from the follow-up.
Do you mind just stating your name, ma'am? I don't think we
sorry.
have your name in here yet.
Okay, Savi Fitch. I'm his wife and the co-owner of the dog.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure. So the follow-up vet that we've been going to, because the emergency only does the initial stuff and then they want you to follow up with the vet she's Dr. Rule from Countryside. And again, I went to her. We've been going every few days or a week. And I don't know why the emergency vet people did not say that part of the exam. I read it today. They only talked about the 2 major puncture wounds on his back. And what they did not write down in the report, oddly enough, was that they came to us and said there were several puncture wounds on the underbelly. And it's not very good. I tried to make it bigger, but there's 2 in his groin, 1 in his thigh, 1 near his stomach, and 1 in his sternum. And they actually worried there was internal bleeding. There were small puncture wounds, but they said they were very deep. And they were worried enough that they said they would like to do a CAT scan to make sure it hadn't punctured any of the major organs that were there. So we said that's fine, and luckily for us, none of the major organs were damaged or punctured. So as a follow-up to the vet, so I want to put that in because there's only conversations about the 2 initial puncture wounds that are huge, the trauma that's been there, but there's nothing in any of the reports about the other many puncture wounds on the underside. Anyway, in the last visit that I had just a few days ago, and I just want to say that this poor dog has been to the vet every few days. This is a catastrophic injury. He got an abscess on the side, and just to clean the abscess, they couldn't just squeeze it out. They put a tube in him. Just a second, y'all. They had to insert a tube like that in him, And I asked them why they wouldn't squeeze it out, because it's in a lot of pain, and they told us to gently work around the wound, and they said they couldn't because he has had so much microscopic tissue damage that had been pressed it more, the skin might have just sloughed off. I'm sorry.
The skin would slough off like a burn, and you'd just be left with raw flesh. So we said, well, why can't you just open them up and scrape the pus out? And they said, because we can't sew it back. We can't, if we massage the skin too much, it may just slough off. I mean, you're talking like skin grafts. So it's very difficult to deal
John,
with the damage
Let me get through
to our little
this.
dog.
Okay. Also, initially, the control officer only saw it when they'd literally taken the dog in and fur was on everything. So she only saw the bleeding, and she was told about the 2 puncture wounds. They hadn't cleaned them up like this. It's a big area. And I just wanted to show everyone. And this is what my vet, on her own, decided she wanted to write as an addendum to the last visit. She said, Coco continues, I'm hoping everybody can hear me. Coco continues to heal from the big dog, little dog incident. This type of injury can be catastrophic, not from the initial puncture wounds, but due to the secondary effects. Anytime there's a bite wound trauma from a strong-jawed attacking dog, there can be microscopic tissue trauma that is not evident initially. Today you asked me how small puncture wounds after a bite could get so bad later. The answer to this question lies in what was happening microscopically that could not be initially seen. It is not uncommon for a big dog, little dog injuries to slough and become markedly worse due to progression and over time. Also, I forgot, our dog is 19 pounds. 19 poodle Havanese mix, half poo. Her dog is, I think, 70 or 80 pounds. I don't have the exact thing here. So you're talking about a dog like this stepping out the front door, and her dog, and she was afraid of that. She was nice enough to tell me at the very beginning. She was going past me every day. She just rushed past. So I said, did I do anything to offend you? And she said, no. My dog is very aggressive to her small dogs, so I don't want him to hurt your dog. That's why I rushed by with my dog. And I don't know why then she did not secure the dog on the leash. Also, I want to say something that it is a common area. There's a leash law, as we know, and the leash law isn't that you put the leash and the dog wanders around. The leash law is for you to hold the dog. And this isn't a private thing, home. It's a common open area. I would say it's like a public thing. Anybody can walk in and out. There are no designated, this is my yard, your yard. It's a condo area. So 19 pounds to 70, 80 pounds. Coco, so they said the progression can be really bad over time, catastrophic. Some small dogs with this type of trauma can die from the result of the secondary effects of the bite, namely from septic shock, because there's been a lot of initial, I'm not saying deliberate, but underplaying of what it meant, even from the emergency people, that it looked okay, it looked fine, it was just 2 puncture wounds. Well, it wasn't just 2 puncture wounds. And they say this is not a minor injury by any means. To you, it may have looked like 2 small punctures initially, but clearly there was catastrophic micro trauma to all his tissues, as evidenced by the amount of scarring he now has. Unfortunately, Coco will be permanently scarred. And she compared it to the scarring from a burn injury. I mean, he is, this whole thing, this poor dog, it's going to be very painful that those tissues are kind of stuck to his body, like with a burn injury. She finally, she said what she expects. the way she looks at a responsible dog owner is that they should keep their dog on a leash at all times when around other people and dogs. And that person should be able to control, she said, please emphasize, control their dog around other dogs and people at all times. This means that if the dog is moving towards yours, they should be able to prevent that dog from making contact with your dog or any other dog or human while on the leash. And she said that to her is a lack of control and makes the dog dangerous along those situations because the owner couldn't control it. The owner couldn't pull at the dog. The owner didn't go to the collar because it was dangerous. There was no choke collar. There was no muzzle. I think my dog wouldn't have sustained such terrible injuries if there was a muzzle involved. He'd have still done damage because of his weight from 90 to a 19-pound dog. But at least he wouldn't have bitten him to half to death. And
But we certainly hope Coco recovers and understand how very scary this is. Are there any other facts that you'd like to make sure we're aware of tonight?
I'd like to argue here, but I have a bit of a disagreement. The vet's all concerned or thinks that this centers on control. Often in dog attacks, the issue is, did the owner have control? That's not the issue here. She, after the hot tub, kind of had control of the dog. She was controlling the dog to intentionally harass, threaten, and intimidate us. Now, the Pilgrim Association is kind of upset. The trustees maybe weren't so sympathetic with me until I told them that she was threatening us with the dog, that this was retaliation for the hot tub. Now the trustees are upset. We've got a hearing next week, and now I'm not on good terms with them. They told me to stop harassing them and tell them what serious liability the trust has if they don't take care of a known hazard on the common land.
So that sounds like potentially some business that might be outside of our consideration. So some of that sounds like it might be outside what we're considering tonight?
Outside of what their jurisdiction.
Yeah, I think we've heard that you've got a concern that there may have been other motives. We hear that. If there's other facts you'd like to bring, then please do so.
Okay, cutting to a chase and involving in the definition in Massachusetts of involuntary manslaughter is an unlawful killing that was unintentionally caused as a result of wanton or reckless conduct that a defendant engaged in. It's not necessary that the defendant intended things to go bad as they might or knew what this could lead to. It merely requires reckless or wanton misconduct and then somebody gets killed. Now, thank the Lord for her, not that we didn't have any children, and we have no children we bring around. But if that day, when she parked herself at the end of the driveway or was playing basketball, if we had had a child with us and her dog had killed that child, her conduct would qualify her to be prosecuted for involuntary manslaughter. Now, Massachusetts is kind of mamby-pamby on this. We've got a law like other states, but other states are cracking down on dog attacks and have prosecuted and convicted people for involuntary manslaughter for conduct a lot less culpable than hers. In Connecticut, a man just didn't repair some boards on his fence and still let his dogs out.
Okay.
They got out.
So I appreciate what you're sharing, and I very much appreciate hearing the facts of what happened. And again, we really hope that Coco recovers quickly. It's very scary to have a pet hurt. Let me turn and ask, are there any questions from the board for this group before we hear from the other group?
Was your injury confirmed as a dog bite?
Pardon me?
Your injury to your elbow, was it confirmed as a dog bite? Were you bitten by the dog?
I wasn't aware of this or that I was bleeding, and it's been presented a theory that the dog knocked me down and I hit the concrete walkway, but I couldn't figure how. I skidded on asphalt playing basketball and trip running. I can't figure how I would get an injury here and below the elbow, but not on this part of the elbow.
Okay, can I just add something to that? Later on, after they said it was just a scab or a scratch or whatever it was, I looked at his thing, and you can pass it around, that there's actually an indentation of a tooth mark there. So if you could just pass it around, John.
But technically, under the law, it doesn't require a bite. It merely requires an attack and that the person gets
Just
injured.
show that also.
The dog attacked. If it knocked me over on the concrete and it caused this, that's injury that qualifies under the law. The dog is dangerous.
John, did you get the information you were looking for from that question? Okay. Thank you. Well, again, thank you very much for coming here and sharing the information. Now, if we could, we'd like to hear from the other dog owner, please.
Mr. Chairman, are you going to present your vet report or any of your photographs?
Yeah, I
to the
didn't know
board?
I could. Sorry about that.
We did see these. I'm not sure how
I'm
we
gonna
get,
give him,
we just get entered into the procedure somehow.
That's right, as we're doing right now. We would just
Yes.
keep these as exhibits and we'll have a file and we'll put them in there and something becomes of it later.
There's pictures of the dog's injury and my little injury, but we didn't need to blow it up like that. But yes, I was slightly injured.
Okay, we'll just take a minute to make sure that you've got whatever information you'd like us to have together.
Dog only.
Yeah. See, I want to show the extent that one shows that.
What about the vet report?
This
Do
is-
you have that?
This is enough. This shows the drain they put in for the pus sticking out, and you see more wounds where the puncture wounds, where the problem is underneath, where it causes the skin to separate from the flesh, and pus accumulates and you get infection.
If we could just collect the information you'd like us to have, then we'll have that for our records. Anything that you'd like us to have.
Thanks.
kind of a duplicate, but it's okay.
Sure.
Doesn't say anything.
Okay. Please. Great, welcome, and if you could just please state your name again and let us know any information you'd like to share about that day.
Okay, my name is Melissa Piora, and I'm the owner of Hardy. We've had Hardy for 9.5 years, and I just want to say that I really had no reason to retaliate over my hot tub. He came and gave me literature telling me that it shouldn't be out there, and I said thank you for the literature the night that he gave it to me, and the next morning the HOA came and told me to take it down, and I have no reason to use my dog to retaliate at all, because I would never want my dog to be put in this situation, or me and my kids to be put in the situation of using my dog to attack anybody. And basically, I just wanted to say what happened that night was my son and I were outside playing basketball, and I did have my dog outside with us. I do just want people to know that my dog is not friendly with other dogs, just so they won't have their dogs come up and try to play with my dog. Not because my dog is a threat and is going to attack anybody. It's just sometimes owners will think their dogs want to play, and I just want people to know. And I always use caution when I'm out walking my dog. I have no reason to use him at all. And just this night, we were outside playing basketball, my son and I in the driveway, and I had Hardy with us, and he was on his leash, and we were playing basketball, and they did come outside, and Hardy did get away from me, and he did go after his dog. Didn't go after my neighbor, just went after the dog, and my neighbor tried to jump in between the dogs, and that's when he fell down and scraped his elbow on the walkway. And he was correct in saying that I was able to get Hardy off by taking him from the back legs. And I did go back, and I did try to see how their dog, make sure their dog was okay, make sure he was okay. I totally understand. I get it. I know how frightened I was frightened. My son, we were frightened over it as well. And I totally understand. I'm not diminishing that they're upset. But we've lived there for 2 years, and to my knowledge, there's never been a complaint. I try to do everything I can, to just let people know that he's not friendly to play with others. And I've talked to people when I'm walking them, my neighbors, and He's never tried to attack any of my neighbors and then, I feel terrible and unfortunate that this incident did happen, but it was in no way, did not try to make my dog attack anybody. And that's all I can tell.
Okay. Well, good. Thank you very much for that. Any questions? Any questions from the board?
Has your dog had any other incidents either here or anywhere else?
No, sir.
With either other dogs or with people?
No. No, just in the past, when we would take him for a walk, he would fight with other dogs, and that's when we realized that he just does not, he's not friendly with other dogs, but he's never had any incidents with any reports of attacking or anything.
As you best recollect, so you were out with your son playing basketball, and he was in your hand, and he left and pulled away?
And he pulled out when they came outside.
Okay. Okay. If there aren't any other questions, I think we'll go ahead and hear from our animal control officers. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You were probably planning to anyway, but if you could just introduce yourselves, that would be terrific.
Sure. Kirsten Hirschler, Animal Control, Westford.
Dan Hurd, Westford Animal Control Officer.
Thank you very much, and if you could please explain your experience on that day.
Sure. So I was called to the emergency vet for a dog bite. When I arrived there, Mr. Fitch was in the parking lot holding his arm and one of the officers was there too, Officer Musto. He briefly just explained to me that, his neighbor's dog had bitten his dog, and I asked if he also was bit. He said he wasn't sure, that, he was trying to get the dogs apart, and it was sort of at the beginning of everything. There's a lot of, energy and emotions. So he ended up going up across the street to get checked out, and at that time I did not go into the hospital. Myself and Officer Musto went to talk with Hardy's owner. She explained that she was out playing basketball. The leash just got pulled out of her hand when the neighbors came out, and she managed to get the dog off by, holding the back legs and bringing him in. So she was very upset as well. She said she had offered her phone number to the neighbors, asked how the dog was. I told her I had not seen the dog yet, but I was heading back to the vet hospital. I put her dog in quarantine that night for 10 days, which is standard. I went back to the vet hospital. Mr. Fitch and Mrs. Fitch and their son were all there. I went to the back room to look at Coco. At that time, he had not been checked out yet, so he was kind of just lying in a cage, and the vet tech, brought me back. I said, I don't want to disturb him. I'm sure he's in shock and, in pain. So I said, just show me what you can. So I just saw 2 puncture wounds at that time. In no way did I, think that there was, that was it. So, as stated in my report, that was just what I had seen at that time. Then I went back out into the waiting room, and Mr. Fitch was very upset. He wanted the attack to be treated like an attack on a human, and that the dog should be euthanized. And I had Officer Musto come back to the vet hospital to, help calm things down a little bit, and basically that's where we stood. So the following day, Dan spoke to
Yeah, I spoke to Mr. Fitch on the phone just to, I realize that things in the moment can be heated. Sometimes you don't remember a bunch of things, so I just wanted to make sure that he understood the quarantine protocol, that Hardy was up to date on his rabies vaccine. Hardy would still be quarantined for 10 days just for Massachusetts state law, just to try to prevent any rabies. At the end of the 10 days, we would go out, make sure that Hardy looked okay, healthy, no symptoms or signs of rabies. And then after that, Coco would not be, at risk for rabies. So, the 10 days went by, we went out, we released Hardy from quarantine. Hardy, didn't exhibit any signs or symptoms of rabies, so he was released. And then we immediately let the Fitch family know as well that Hardy was healthy, and that Coco was not at risk for rabies.
Can I just say one thing? In
Yeah, please.
the police report, I think Officer Musto just misunderstood. I think he's just, usually he's dealing with people and not dogs and all that stuff. So we were both there at the same time. We both heard the same thing. So he obviously misunderstood, which is what he documented in his report. So I think.
Okay, great, thank you. Any, please, why don't we let Anita go first, thank you, John.
Did you have any concerns with, in terms of observations of Hardy when you went to go see him?
I personally did not. Hardy was barking at us. In his defense, we're strangers, we're animal control officers. I expect a dog to bark at a stranger at the door. In no way did I feel threatened by Hardy. Hardy was separated by glass when we got there to see him. He was barking at us like I think the majority of dogs probably would, but I didn't feel threatened by him. I didn't feel like he was a public safety threat. I didn't feel like he was an overly aggressive dog. He's just a dog who is just kind of defending his,
There was no growling.
Yeah.
The body language was not that of wanting to.
We were just strangers at his house, and he was letting his family know. But in no way did we think that he was an overtly aggressive dog or any kind of a public safety threat.
Okay. And Officer, are you here for the next thing?
For this.
This as well, do you want to come forward?
He needed me.
Just, do you want to share your, I'm sorry, John, you please go ahead, I didn't mean to jump ahead.
You
Then we'll go to you,
said,
Officer.
Officer must have misunderstood.
Well, Mr. Fitch noted that in the police report, Officer Musto said that the leash was not attached to anything. So I think he misunderstood that the leash was not attached to anything once it was pulled out of the hand. So I just wanted to clarify that she was holding the leash and it was pulled out of her hand.
Okay. That was her testimony. You didn't
That's,
observe.
Officer Musto and I both heard the same thing, and, right.
Okay.
Officer, do you have anything you want to share before we go to, we're going to ask a recommendation from our animal control officers in just a sec, but.
Good evening, Lieutenant Jim Peliquin, representing the police department. Unless you had many more questions, the facts of the event were very similar to the officer. Just like was presented tonight, the injuries to Mr. Fitch were inconclusive, but the dog attack and all that was very consistent with what we've heard tonight.
Okay, thank you. Any questions before we ask for animal control officers' recommendations to us, and then we'll go into deliberation?
No.
Okay.
Is there any way I can just add something, or is it out of my thing right now? Can I clarify something?
If you have something brief you'd like to add, then we'll
Very
entertain
brief.
it.
Can I stand here? Is that
Yeah,
okay?
that's fine, perfect.
All right.
I want to go to the mic because the people.
Oh, you're right. Thank you, Jody. We have two sets of mics. One is probably for the virtual
Can
part,
you
and
hear
this
me
is for
now?
the broadcast.
Yep.
So
Okay.
perfect.
I know that they make the recommendation. I know, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name. Dan. And he did come to our house and we were talking about this. And right now when I was talking, I find it hard that when he's recommending something, he's going to be the person you listen to. His saying that he went to the house and he wasn't threatened, he didn't feel anything after the kind of injury that my dog sustained. And his thing is from behind a glass door that the dog was barking in a friendly way is a supposition and just is not somebody who was present there. And his assessment of the dog is not a proper assessment in my thing. Making the dog a very friendly, jovial, nice dog who's just barking because his owners are there. He didn't interact with the dog really. He doesn't know that. I remember when my husband went, the information, he was holding the dog saying, I can't hear you, no, you can't come in, and she was hanging on to Hardy. That is more a realistic thing than his saying. So I think that it should be taken into consideration seriously. If he's going to be the one you listen to, then you should think about the fact over and it was a totally controlled situation. And he has no way to say the dog is friendly, nice, barking how it's barking. He is not able to make that judgment. And it should be seriously taken into consideration. What happened to our dog is more important than his personal assessment.
We hear you. Okay.
I have a little comment on what I.
If it's a new fact, if you have any new facts to offer,
What?
If it's a new fact.
if you have a new fact, we'll hear it,
I don't know,
but
I just wanted to express and explain that dogs have been bred for pit fighting, that people don't seem to understand. They think that they're going to go and find a vicious, snarling dog. Pit bulls my daughter saw in a shelter, and you say, oh, this is easy, we'll kill that dog. Dogs trained for hundreds of years to be pit fighting dogs are the most wonderful, devoted, loving dogs. They'll play with the children. It's a matter of self-defense for the people who handle them and fight them. Also, I looked Wikipedia. Look at the countries where dog fighting is still accepted. There's a ref in the ring. If your dog shows aggression to the ref, you're disqualified.
Okay, thank you. I think.
So of course,
I think you've moved beyond facts that are relevant to this particular case.
They are friendly, lovely,
Okay.
family dogs until something ticks them off.
Okay, thank you for that. We would very much like your recommendation, your understanding of the assessment, just your professional judgment based on all the good work you've been doing for a long time.
Absolutely. You know, I think whenever we have a dog bite, at least a week, and obviously every single bite could theoretically lead to a dangerous definition, just based on the law. I think in the nature of trying to deem if something is dangerous or not, I think Kirsten and I agreed that this is the first time incident for Hardy, at least to our knowledge. It was more of an owner accident than kind of an unprovoked kind of thing. It sounds like Miss Pura does normally keep the dog on a leash. She's usually pretty good about it. This sounds like an unfortunate accident. So, we weren't under the impression that it justified a dangerous dog label. She's already been very proactive about trying to do things to prevent this from happening again in the future, like buying a different harness for the dog, gentle leader type thing.
Double leashing.
Double leashing, and just being, aware of the fact that Hardy can do this. A lot of these times it's more of an owner compliance issue than, is this a public safety threat as far as a dog? So, we felt like the action would suffice as far as what, was coming across with Miss Pura. She's very aware of, Hardy's capabilities, and that this was an unfortunate accident and didn't necessarily justify a dangerous dog label.
Okay. Questions before we enter the deliberation phase? Anita?
So in addition to what you saw in terms of like the double leashing, gentle leader harness, was there something that you would add to that list of things in terms of?
We had recommended a basket muzzle. A muzzle is technically one of the things that's on the list that you could invoke if you deemed Hardy dangerous. I think we've done that with a dog in the town of Westford. I think she was under the impression that she may try to take that upon herself as well, trying to put a basket muzzle on the dog. Just in the off chance that something did happen, it would prevent Hardy from biting anyone. So, the double leashing, the gentle leader, potentially basket muzzle,
Continuing to avoid, it sounds like she's already been, when she goes on walks, she's avoiding people. I mean, there's a reason. It's not anything personal. It's, not dogs, some dogs don't get along with other dogs. I mean, just, so she's aware of it, and she's, I think pretty focused on keeping everyone, safe around her, and unfortunately this incident happened and she lost grasp of the leash, so.
Okay. Any other questions before we move into the next phase? Okay. Thank you very much, and please stay close by. We may have other questions for you. Counsel, you can help me. As I recall for this, we have a couple things. One is, do we have a nuisance dog, a dangerous dog, or decide that neither labels apply? And then, based on that, are there follow-on requirements we want to put in place?
Right. That's essentially it. You have the based on and this is right out of the statute, based on the credible evidence and testimony presented at this hearing, the hearing authority shall, 1, if the dog is complained of as a nuisance dog, either dismiss the complaint or deem the dog a nuisance dog, or if the dog is complained of as a dangerous dog, dismiss the complaint, deem the dog a dangerous dog, or a nuisance dog or deem the dog a dangerous dog. And if you deem it a nuisance dog, as I had indicated to you before, there are no prescribed conditions that you have to place. You can do essentially anything. You can't banish a dog from a cat. If it's a dangerous dog, then there is a laundry list of things that you are able to, you shall order one or more of the following. You can restrain him. You can require him to be restrained, but he can't be tethered to a tree. That he can be confined to the premises, provided, however, that the confined shall mean securely confined indoors or confined outdoors in a secured enclosure, a locked pen. That anytime he is removed from the premises, that he would be securely and humanely muzzled and restrained with a chain or other tethering device having a tensile strength of 300 pounds. You could require proof of insurance, although there is a safety valve in here that if the dog owner attempts to make reasonable efforts to obtain the insurance and is not able to, then this requirement would not go forward. You could, like I said before, you could ask that the dog be tattooed. I don't think that's something, a permanent identification. I don't think that's something we're dealing with here. And you could also require the dog to be altered. I don't know if the dog is altered at this point. Or you could require the dog to be euthanized. You want me to read you the definition of dangerous dog?
Yeah, if you could read that, that would be great, and then we'll move into this discussion, please.
And again, you can find nuisance or dangerous or not.
Right.
A dangerous dog, a dog that either without justification attacks a person or domestic animal causing physical injury or death, or behaves in a manner that a reasonable person would believe poses an unjustified imminent threat of physical injury or death to a person or to a domestic or owned animal. That's dangerous dog. A nuisance dog is a dog that by excessive barking or other disturbance is a source of annoyance to a sick person residing in the vicinity, or by excessive barking causing damage or other interference, a reasonable person would find such behavior disruptive to one's quiet and peaceful enjoyment, or has threatened or attacked livestock, a domestic animal or person, but such threat or attack was not grossly disproportionate reaction under all of the circumstances.
Okay. And as I recall, there's something about if you're declared a dangerous dog, you've got certain requirements, and if the requirements for any reason are not met, then does that change the nature of the next hearing, if I'm remembering correctly?
Well, what you would have to do is you'd have to hold another hearing to make sure,
Yeah.
to deem that the requirements were not met, it was a violation of the order. And if there is a violation of the order, at some point you could ask to have the dog surrendered. And then we would go into court to get the dog surrendered to us.
Okay. Questions either about definitions or procedure? We're really entering the deliberation phase at this point.
I think I got the definition.
Okay. Great. Any comments or perspectives, John?
I think this dog fits the description of a dangerous dog, but I don't think this one incident would call for euthanasia. I think it calls for control, and we're still, muzzled when he's out. If he hasn't been fixed, I think he needs to be fixed, because aggression, that would cut back on the aggression. I don't want to take the dog away from the family in the sense that, I think it's a dangerous dog. I just don't think capital punishment for him is the ultimate thing. I think the measures up to that would be my recommendation. That's my thinking.
Anita?
So I could kind of see it falling under nuisance or dangerous, depending on what one of those qualifiers are. The last one under nuisance was attacking a domestic animal or livestock or something like that, but it's kind of outside of its behavior. And I thought about one of our ACO animal control officers saying some dogs don't like other dogs. And I know that that's true. And so I struggle with that piece a little bit, whether or not this is something that is a dangerous dog that would be continuous behavior, especially understanding that the the owner has taken precautions to prevent this from happening again. But I waffle on that part a little bit. I understand what you're saying, but I'm not sure if this is going to be repeated behavior. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, so very often when we see these, it is strongly related to owner noncompliance. Like the owner of the dog that attacks is not controlling the dog, isn't taking appropriate measures. That's not really what's happening here. It seems like the owner of the offending dog is aware of what the dog's is like and sort of has been educating other people about it. And the practice was to always have it on leash, and this is a case where the leash got pulled away. So I feel like it could be reasonable to add a muzzle requirement, but I feel like in this case a lot of proactive measures were taken by the offending dog owner, and so for me, I don't feel like we want to take any. I wouldn't feel comfortable taking any more extreme action than in one of those definitions, including a muzzle requirement. Nita?
I'd hate to continue this hearing and stuff, but I think Mrs. Fitch brought up a good point where, the observation of going to the home when the dog is behind glass would be very different than if you see the dog being walked, for example, or the behavior might be different. And I don't know, I don't have a dog. I am trying to find a dog, which is how I know that some dogs don't like other dogs. But I don't know if that's something is common practice for our animal control officers to do, or if the behavior at home is pretty indicative of the behavior outside. Does that make sense?
I guess that's a question to you, animal control officers.
I agree. In general, I think our assessment of the dog is probably limited in scope. With that said, it's hard to, unless you're going to have us potentially put the dog through its paces and, see how it reacts in different situations. I guess that's feasible, but we've never done that before. I'm not a dog behaviorist by any means. I'm simply an ACO. So, I agree that, the dog will act differently around family members than it will to other dogs. But again, our interaction with it is so limited to really make an opinion outside the scope of, this case.
Yep, Nita?
I know that you do this for a living, and you said you deal with this all the time.
Right.
So I definitely respect your opinion and stuff, so I really appreciate that. And I know that some of the, so that's all I had. But my other comment was that I know that we did receive 2 emails from neighbors, and one had mentioned that they had not experienced any sort of aggression, I think, from the dog, and then the other neighbor did mention that there was a lot of excessive barking, which they thought had been controlled since, which I understand that it's not a dangerous issue. Barking is more of a nuisance issue. So.
And the barking, I think.
Sorry.
Different dog.
I got a question about animal control.
Yep.
You recommended some different leash requirements. For example, if you a muzzle, and then there was another leash you referred to. You had a term for it.
We did, yeah. There's a gentle leader type harness. It's basically a harness, and it just gives you better control of the dog. Miss Pura was very open to that. I think she may have actually already purchased it. So rather than just a collar and a leash around the neck, it's more around the chest or around the face, and it just gives you better control of the dog. And she was very open to that. She was very open to any more control she could have over the dog. I did mention that's just wanted to, or it could be enforced if you order. But that's a little more extreme than just getting a strong harness or a leash. But she was very open to both ideas.
Yeah, my concern with that would be that this could happen again, and that's the reason I'm looking for the restraint part and partially in the muzzle part, because best efforts sometimes might not work.
For sure. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think just to be clear to your point as well, I do believe Hardy is he neutered?
Yeah.
Yes. Is Hardy neutered?
Oh, yes,
okay.
he is.
Hardy is already it's defined as altered in the paper, but he is altered.
Okay. Well, we have a couple of determinations to make. So, did you have a point?
I did want to make one point because, and I'm sorry, I don't want to call you by your first name. So, that you had indicated that you thought in the nuisance dog, there was a provision that talked about dogs that are aggressive toward other animals or persons, and there is. And that is, has threatened or attacked livestock, a domestic animal, or a person, but such threat or attack was not a grossly disproportionate reaction under all the circumstances. So that would be under the nuisance definition. If you were to find it was a nuisance dog, you could certainly, you could find it, if it was dangerous, you are restricted to the 7. But if you find that it's a nuisance dog, you could certainly put muzzle and leash requirements on it, basket muzzles, whatever you want. But I just wanted you to know that under, under these circumstances, it looks like it could fit in either one or none of them. And that's up to you.
Well, it sounds like we have some interest in making sure that the dog is more securely restrained. I do have a concern that if it did happen again, I mean, it's a strong dog, and so if there's a possibility of the dog, pulling away again, I would hate for there to be that to be the only thing. I guess Dan, can I ask you? I've never had a muzzle for our dog. What does that look like? What is that? That's just...
I guess for layman's terms, it's like the Hannibal Lecter type mask. Okay. It looks a lot worse than it does. A lot of the times dogs don't even know it's on. My own personal dog had to use one for years just because he didn't like other dogs. And it just gave me that peace of mind that if, God forbid, a leash broke or if he slipped out of my hands and he decided to go after another dog, it would prevent him from biting. It looks like that.
Okay, and just, I don't mean to interrupt you, but it's not, from an animal welfare point of view, it's not generally viewed as something that's... I
wouldn't consider that inhumane by any means. Like I said, a lot of the time dogs don't even know it's on. It could prevent something from happening in the future. I don't entirely know if it's necessary in this case, but I'll leave that up to you.
Okay. Well, through either avenue of a nuisance or dangerous dog, we could make the enforcement requirement that the additional leashing recommendations from the animal control officer and some sort of humane muzzle be part of the plan going forward. And we could, it sounds like under the statute, we've got the possibility to go either direction. I'm trying to recall how we've typically handled these in the past, to the extent that's useful. I think typically we would escalate up through if we could use various definitions, if it's a first-time offense and it seemed like people were operating in good faith. But this board can decide either of those and make whatever requirements that we want.
Okay. Do we have a basis for a motion, or how do you want to do it?
We could either, I think you could either make a motion that Hardy be considered a nuisance dog, and we want to make the requirement, put the requirement in place that the additional leashing recommendations for animal control officers and a humane muzzle be included going forward. You could do that, or you could make the same motion but with dangerous dog as the category.
But how do you guys feel more it's nuisance than dangerous?
Just in the past, when we've had a first-time requirement, I would probably go with nuisance, just because in the past we've tended, if it's a first-time offense, people are operating in good faith to sort of escalate up through. Typically, just in my memory, when we've done a dangerous dog, it's typically egregious on the owner's behalf and the dog's behalf. But there's no rule here, and as counsel says, we could go either direction.
Do you feel kind of the same way?
I do, but I'm going to ask one more question, and you were very nice and said you would do this 8 million times tonight. But if you define a dangerous dog versus a nuisance dog, what happens in terms of next steps? I mean, it sounds like we might have consensus around adding a muzzle to whatever the requirements are, but the dangerous versus nuisance, what happens after that?
Well, I mean, if you declare it a dangerous dog, there may be implications for the homeowner with respect to homeowner's insurance and the like. I don't know that. But if you declare it a dangerous dog, it is for eternity a dangerous dog. Essentially you could give the same exact penalty, if you will. In the statute, it allows for muzzling and being on a leash out in public. So though, that's really the big difference is, I think dangerous dog designations are typically reserved for those instances where there's a very vicious bite and oftentimes on a person. I'm not saying that it wasn't vicious dog on dog. I've seen many dangerous dog determinations dog on dog. But usually when a person is bit deliberately, then the dangerous dog label is placed on them. Here, again, as I've read the definitions, I think you could fit it in either one. On the scale of it, I think dangerous dog is probably a worse designation, as the chair was just explaining, than a nuisance dog.
I could go along with that as long as we provide the safety measures with the muzzling, the leash, and control.
Okay. Would you like to make that motion?
How do we want it to see?
Well, you could make the motion that that Hardy be determined a nuisance dog, and that the select board directs that the additional leashing requirements as recommended by animal control officer and a humane muzzle be incorporated on any outdoors.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any other comment?
Can I just get clarification on the leasing requirements? Are you talking about what did you call the leash?
Yeah, there's a gentle leader type leash that goes around the muzzle, and there's also just a harness that goes around the chest. In my opinion, either one would suffice.
So either a gentle leader or a harness.
Yeah, they make
I
a
just
gentle
want to be
leader.
clear.
Gentle leader's like the brand. Harness would be, a
Yeah,
chest harness.
okay, so either.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to get that clear.
You comfortable with that?
And
Okay.
a basket muzzle or a humane muzzle?
Can we call it a humane muzzle? Is that descriptive enough?
Basket muzzle really is the
Basket muzzle,
the
okay.
technical term. Yes, sir.
Let's call it a basket muzzle.
Thank you.
Humane basket. Okay. So I have a motion, I have a second. All in favor?
All right.
Okay. Thank you very much. This concludes, actually, I need a motion to go out of public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, this concludes that part of our agenda. We'll now be moving on to our 8:45 item. We'll give everyone a second if you want to take a moment.
Thank you.
Do you need me here any further?
I don't think so, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Have a great night. Good to see you again. I think you helped us with one earlier.
I think I did about a few years back.
Thank you.
Yeah, the liquor violation.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, guys.
Okay.
You can keep them. And,
Now,
Need help with the decision?
now I need a motion to go
tomorrow
into
with
public
the-
hearing.
Yeah, thank you.
No, this was moved too.
Thank you.
Oh, this was moved.
Yes, till
Well, we have
9:14.
to, we actually have to vote for that, to move
Open
it,
it and
don't we?
continue it, right?
Sure, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Yep, because we already did the notices, but the attorney asked to move it to 9:14.
Okay,
Don't we
sorry,
have,
sorry, I
don't
missed
we
that.
have to open it, continue it, and then close it?
Sure.
Let's do that.
I don't think you close it though, right?
No, you don't,
It just
you
has to
don't,
be
yeah,
open-
you just
open and
open and
continue. It's on the
continue,
agenda, I
right,
guess.
sorry.
Didn't mean to speak.
No, thank you,
Okay,
Patty.
so first a motion to open, then a motion to continue.
Even though I'm not chair, sorry.
Make a motion, we open the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
I make a motion that we continue the public hearing to the 14th, this meeting on the 14th of September,
Second.
2021.
Second.
You know
All in
what,
favor?
we're supposed to have a time certain, which I don't think I have, so maybe you could make it at 7:35, and we will
Yes,
make it
okay.
7:35.
Because that's going to be quite a meeting, the 14th.
It's gonna be, I don't have that in front of me, so I think we just need to make it at 7:35. You're supposed to continue to a time certain.
Okay, let's do.
Make it happen.
7:35.
35 it
Okay,
is.
so move second, all in favor.
Amen.
Uh-oh.
All right, we have new information. We have it set for 7:40. already.
Oh, it's already
So
there.
you could continue to 7:40.
7:40.
As amended?
As amended.
All in favor?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Any board reports or updates? Okay, seeing none. Minutes for approval and release, regular session, July 27th, 2021. Any comments on the
I'll make
minutes?
a motion, we approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, town manager's report.
Yes, so I just wanted to let you know that we had a request from our Communications Advisory Committee that now has 4 members, I'm happy to say, to support the Council on Aging Director's request to amend the MOU that we have with Comcast to add the affordable housing properties at 65 Tadmuck Road and 7 Church Street to the list of locations which are provided free cable. And just Part B, and then I'll speak to this, is we also had a request from the committee, the same committee, to support Oshpa, I don't know how to pronounce it, and Skolko CPA's analysis of Comcast payments to the town and direct Comcast to pay the disputed amount. So what I suggested to the chair was that we have an executive session and discuss these 2 items, because one's opening an agreement you already have and the other is litigation. And so when she returns from vacation, we will try to set that up with you.
Okay.
Then, thirdly, I would like to request that you appoint Eric Heidemann as acting town manager from September 2nd through September 12th.
Any questions?
No questions.
Okay, I need a motion in a second.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Hope you have a great visit.
Thank you. And then request to approve the following contracts and purchase orders: Border and Remington, Harco's Chemicals, and a few other little companies for water treatment chemicals at unit prices listed in the proposal form. Police Chief Mark Chambers employment agreement for July 13th, 2021 through June 30th, 2024. You did approve that in executive session, but we need to revote in open. Charles and Diane Grandine for a purchase and sales agreement for the disposition of 63 Main in the amount of $425,000. And purchase orders process distributors for fiscal year 22 purchase of Constant Chlor Plus dry chlorinator briquettes in the amount of $26,500, and CDWG for HP laptops for Westford Academy, the amount of $15,715.28.
Any questions about any of these? Okay. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Any motion to waive correspondence?
I make a motion, we waive the reading of the correspondence.
Second.
All in favor? I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all. Stay well. Be safe.
So I have a couple things for you to sign.